Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Jody Lynn, quick quiz. Can you think of anything more fun than play?
No. More play.
Didn't take you long to answer that one.
Yeah. That one is an easy one.
Yeah. Well, I try to make it easy. You know how that is. But yeah, I agree with you. There's really nothing so much fun as play. And I think it's the first word that comes to our mind when we think of the word fun. Let's just go play. Mm-hmm. And it has so many different meanings and so forth. And we're going to explore them, all of them. Well, as many as we can in an hour. With our guest Zander Phelps, who's joining us today and who's all about, in fact, he even has a hat on that says play in big letters across the front of the hat. Hey, Zander, how you doing?
Great. How you doing today, Walt?
Doing fine, thank you. So you, as with most of our guests, you come to us through the Podmatch platform, and there's a really great picture of you flying in the middle of the air with like a kind of a hacky sack, and it's obvious you're having fun doing it. And your subtitle says the play coach. Now, it's pretty obvious what you're about, right? I mean, you're not really hiding anything here.
No, I try and make it plain and right to the point that it's a playful spirit. So got to emphasize that as much as possible.
Has it always been like that for you?
I mean, I've always had fun. I've always had a good time, even growing up and stuff like that. I followed the typical growing up stage where we actually get play kind of shut down. It becomes more about competitive sports. I did a lot of competitive sports growing up. So play didn't really become a factor until I really got into the meaning of what play meant. And in retrospect, but I've always had a playful spirit. I've always tried to do things that were fun, but it became like a mission to reignite that the childlike playful spirit that somehow gets crushed out of us.
Where did that mission come from?
Oh, well, in hindsight, like coming back to the point of like looking around and seeing not as many smiles as we should, not as many interactions, and especially now with our device-driven world, people are starting to lose what humanity, our humanity, our interconnectedness, and play, I think, is the foundation of that. I think that's why we come here. I'm just like, we got to get back into it.
Was there also a personal experience that led you to this?
Yes, I was working really hard for a while. For about 2 years, I was working. For the first 9 months, I was working about 100 hours a week.
Ooh,
in a job. Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. It was brutal.
I've done 80. I know what that's like. 100. I mean, that's basically faint on the floor territory.
I slept at my work. I would go home 1 day a week to do laundry, and then came back and just slept at work. So it was an option for me to continue with that. But at one point in time I said no. And then I got all my things down to a backpack and started traveling and really exploring the world. But right when I was leaving,
physical and emotional health over a job. Well done.
I had total burnout, like I couldn't even look at a computer screen anymore. And I'm like, nope, can't do it. Yeah. And then and one of my friends gave me his foot bag, and that's what really just opened up to me almost immediately to the power of play and how it just can connect all of us in remarkable ways.
One of the themes that shows up a lot here on the show from virtually everybody who comes onto the show, including Jody Lynn as a co-host, but she was also originally a guest, is that we go through something that is traumatic or painful or debilitating, or something from childhood perhaps, and we come out the other side and something helped us come through at the other side, and then that becomes our thing that we want to spread with the world. I'm really fascinated. For you, it was play. I mean, that's not that seriously. I can't remember the last time we had somebody come on the show to say, well, I discovered play as a solution.
Right. Yeah, it's not thought. It's so obvious, but it's not thought of that way.
No,
it's weird because we're kind of trained to think that play is something that only kids do, that it's the antithesis to work. Yeah, it's childish. Grow up. Stop playing around. I'm like, you're kidding me. I mean, like the way to do it is incorporate more play, is to make it, you know, and that's what, I mean, big companies are discovering that. They're more like, okay, if we allow people to play, it resets the brain, it gets people more creative, and instead of coming to work as feeling like a chore, I'm going to go hang out with my friends and do some work together.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, the thing that always struck me about play, I've actually long believed in the idea of play. I think it's great that you're promoting it as a thing to do. But I've long believed in it, partly because of the phrase "to play with something," which is a phrase that as adults we mean I'm going to kind of, be like a computer hacker. I'm going to kind of manipulate and open the thing up and see if I can figure out how it works and try to make something work that wasn't working properly. I'm going to play with it, which is not typically the same thing what we think about a child playing with something, but it's still play, and it's fundamental because that's how you figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the children figure out things through play. So anytime as adults we're doing that, we're starting to activate that childlike play, which is discovering, evolving. And that's, the one thing they found out was that, like, how many repetitions it takes to learn something. It takes 200 to 300 repetitions, but if you do it through play, it takes about 15 to 20, they say, to get something.
Wow.
Right. So it is so profound. It is such a way that we need to do that. And, again, as we age, it kind of gets segmented into a play time. Like, this is your recess. And then we go through high school and stuff. It gets segmented into sports, and that becomes more of a competitive play. And so that childlike play that doesn't want to be in that competitive state, children want to play that, like, make the play last longer. So they mess with the rules so that it's more balanced versus trying to feel like they're crushing somebody, because then they don't feel good. So as we age, we get into that mental state, and then play is associated with a sport or an activity where we're not really getting that childlike spirit to be involved.
And I actually get the impression, just from myself, from my own experience, that when we are getting into that more competitive play, the way you're describing it, and certainly that's the way a lot of people would describe it, I think where a lot of that comes from is actually fear. I mean, if you think about the kinds of activities, you were describing how life gets segmented when you become an adult. And a lot of that segmentation is, trying to survive economically, trying to figure out, navigate your way through a life that you weren't really prepared for because you didn't really prepare for it in school. As much as they like to claim that you did, you really didn't.
Not at all.
The opposite.
Jody? I mean, it's like this ongoing thing that we all go through, and we keep passing it on to the same generation. Okay, I've been through it. Now you get to go through it. Have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck. We're all counting on you.
Right.
Yeah.
But seriously, it is really true that I really think that fear becomes a driving factor, because any of our emotions can drive us. But because, especially these days, but even in general, over the decades, over the millennia, really, fear has been the driving force behind almost all economic activity, a lot of human activity of all kinds, political, religious, social, you name it. I mean, it drives a lot of things. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have kind of a downer on play as an adult, because, we have to deal with the real world. We don't have time to play. Who has time to play? We have to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a waste of time. What are you doing?
Waste of time.
Wasting your time. You got to work hard.
Yeah,
Wasn't
exactly.
the formula for making money and being successful as an adult? Play.
Hello.
Besides, you aren't an adult until you've burned out, right?
Exactly. And you're miserable.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way to go. That's the way we need to live, is just be in misery and striving to make all those ends meet. You gotta buckle down.
If only they sold it to us that way, man, people would run screaming in the other direction if it was sold that way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you don't know until you're already jumped in, and then you're stuck. Yeah. Then you're in it. You can't. Then it just keeps on compiling, because you don't take those breaks. You don't take that time to reset, and it builds. Like, that stress builds, the fear builds, and all of a sudden you're just like, I can't climb this, and everything just builds on top of each other. You're screwed.
Yeah,
So
you're screwed. And then you end up going to coaches like Jody Lynn who help you get over your fear.
get over it. Yeah.
I mean,
And
Jody Lynn, you're a
trying
money
to
coach, but isn't
restart.
that what you're doing? You're helping people get past their fear.
Yeah. Well, and see the perception, which is, it's so interesting because that's immediately my coaching brain will kick in. And the first thing that, or one of the first things I wrote down in this conversation is, what is your perception of play? Because the perception of play is like the first thing that came up, waste of time, which I know that it's not, and that it's so important. And like the statistic you gave, if it takes 200 and whatever times to learn something versus 15 to 20, like you're gaming the system by playing through it. But we've been manipulated and taught to think that you work hard, you get a good job, you do these certain things, and it's all conditioning. So if somebody came to me with that burnout scenario, we'd be working on what is your perception of what you think you have to do to get there. Not necessarily the play conversation, but eliminating all of those things. And I can see with myself, even to this day, even though I've worked on tons of stuff, play is a little uncomfortable for me. I still have a negative perception of play.
And I get it. I get that, and that's one of the walls that you hit up against with trying to come out and just say, hey, I'm the play coach. You're like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are you trying to do? I'm like, believe me, man, our world is, our mental health crisis is real, and there's a reason behind it. So we've got to figure out a solution that's not through drugs. How are we going to do it? I mean, we got to get to the next level. And it just seems to me like, well, I remember I felt the best when I was playing. I remember I felt like the world had meaning, that I could always find a way to just enjoy play. So that's the thing I find. A little side note story, a really cool story is when I after I was doing this job, I was actually working for NBC. And doing this and revitalizing television a whole new way. When I quit my job, I had an opportunity to manage another startup company in San Francisco. They were doing, it was the big boom right there going on in like 95. And I went to this company and I got a tour from the boss. He was showing me all these different areas. And we came to this big room where all the graphic designers were and the programming type of things, diligently working, on their computers, just focused. And as we were leaving, the boss guy winks at me and he goes, hey, wait, check this out. All right, everybody, shoot them up. And everyone grabbed guns, like Nerf guns that they had at their desks. And everyone just started pegging each other. And the room just erupted in mayhem. Like people are diving all over the place, hiding behind their desks. And everyone was popping off with these guns, And it didn't last that long. Like everyone knew how long it was supposed to last. And so everyone just calmed down after 5 minutes of mayhem. They picked up all the bullets and then everyone went back to their desk. But the atmosphere of the room had changed just dramatically. Everyone was smiling again. Everyone was just, in a totally different state. And the guy nudged me, he goes, this is the best way we found out to keep everybody having fun and creative. We found out that creativity sparks. Everyone feels like they're part of this group thing and they just get back to work and focus. It's just the best way. So that became part of their normal routine. Like every once in a while, things were stressed out. The boss was coming there, shoot them up, or somebody who was a supervisor. That was going to be my gig, was to come in there and help supervise everything and then just yell that every once in a while, apparently. Right. Shoot them up.
I love how, first of all, I love how you picked up on the same theme that Jody Lynn mentioned a moment ago, the double pun, playing, right? Playing the system, gaming the system, right? And now you bring in a game in order to shift the system around. So well done with, the double meanings there. But in addition to that, those double meanings, they actually play out. There it is again. They actually play out in a lot of different ways in our lives if we only pay attention to them. That's why I'm paying attention to these double meanings right now. We have the phrasing, we have the verbiage, we just don't pay attention to the verbiage we're already using. If we paid attention to it and actually took it literally, my goodness, it'd be a completely different world.
Totally different,
right? And I that's what I envision a world where we get all of this and we're like, okay, we can create, well, I call it the play flow state, but that state where you're able to adjust to different things. And that incorporates with anything you do. I mean, literally anything you do, you can do it in a playful state. Like, there's programmers, they're naturally going in this flow state because they're playing. They're trying to play with different ways of doing things. Writers, same thing. You're playing while you're doing that. But like if I'm walking on a street, I try and play as I'm walking. I don't go in a straight line. It's really bad for your body, first of all. So I try and change it up. I'll jump off of a curb. Like if a pole's right there, I'll kick it, kick one leg up on it and slide off of it, or do something fun with it just to amuse myself. But, every once in a while I catch somebody do it and they give out a little chuckle. And I'm like, okay, I've changed that person's day. And so it helps me like recognize, okay, if I can just keep on doing that, I'm amusing myself, but all those involved or who see it will hopefully change their day, and they'll pass that smile or that little bit of a warm fuzzy to the next person they meet. So it has another way that just keeps on impacting everything.
Yeah, and that smile is huge. In fact, as you're talking about that, I'm also thinking about the way that this play motif could be interwoven to a lot of the negative things that people already give attention to. I mean, right now, the famous thing right now, we're in the midst of this great divide, right? So there's this big political thing that goes on. What if people, instead of getting all worked up one way or another about it, what if they turn it into a playful thing? How much would the whole energy shift just by turning it into play?
Mm-hmm.
And discovering how to do that. How do you do that? That's the unleashing of that. And if you stay in that if you find a way to like play, you'll bring more play into it. It's like if you're in a playful mode, then more ideas will come to you about how to play with that situation. But again, we're more trained to be at war.
Yeah. So Zander, how do you get into that play mode if you're not very good at this? If you're not very good at it, well, start with little things. Just start with, it's to find out your way of playing. Like I have certain things I always like my two, I call them the pillars of play that I do for myself that I always recommend people to do. One of them is juggling. Like I am a huge proponent of juggling. As anything you can do for your brain, juggling should be it. It'll help cross train for so many different things, and the way it activates your brain is incredible. So do you think that
everybody who wants to be a manager in business should learn to juggle?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, seriously, because that's what management is, right? It's juggling.
Yeah, it's juggling. But you can activate both your left, right hemispheres, and the corpus callosum. It gets activated in a unique way. So you have these pulses that it goes into a rhythm that it loves going between the left, right hemisphere. So it's actually stimulating all the neurons in the brain in a holistic brain pulse. So not specified. They're not like linear thoughts. So it just activates your brain in this way that the rhythm it loves. So you can learn a 3-ball cascade pretty easily. There's not a lot of time involved with it. And when people give me excuses, I'm like, Jesus. If excuses are great. Yeah, they prevent you from doing things. But if you knew how good it was for you to do, you would just do it and stop with the excuses. But you can learn that initial cascade, and then you could always learn a new trick. But I'm like, minimally get a 3-ball cascade down. So there's a learning curve time where all of a sudden you'll get past this one point where you've got it down and your brain relaxes. It just goes into this total flow state. And it happens almost instantly now when I juggle. But initially, it took me a little bit of time to get there. But when you get there, you'll realize why juggling is so good. Because your brain just drops everything and just focuses on that rhythm of the balls going. That's just boom, 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 boom. So, I tell my son who's in college.
It almost sounds like meditation, actually.
Totally.
It's a meditation in motion. It really is. So, that kind of goes to a sideshow of like my other thing I recommend is kicking around a foot bag. Like when my friend gave me one of these, he gave me his foot bag. It literally changed my world because I had my backpack on. I was about ready to leave somewhere. And he's like, keep this in your pocket. It's going to be the best gift anyone will ever give you. And I was able to kick this around anywhere. And I get into that flow state, what I call the play flow state, pretty easily. Like you're using your whole bodies, you're kicking this thing around, like juggling, ultimate brain exercise, kicking around a hack, ultimate physical exercise. Again, nothing comes quite as close as what kicking around a foot bag does for your core, your body. As you're balancing on one leg, kicking this thing out, your brain is on fire trying to make all those calculations. And and you're kicking this thing around, playing by yourself. The slogan is "Play with thyself." That's another play on words, but right. But you can do that anywhere, but somebody will come in and play with you most of the times. And all of a sudden you have this great way of socializing with this other person in a nonviolent cooperative competition game. So that was my means of traveling to different countries. I would always go there, go barefoot in a park and start kicking it. And I would meet a local person, and all of a sudden, hey, come to my house for dinner. No problem. Or just some way of connecting with this person instantly in a fun-loving way. And then I learned how to make them, and I gave them to people. Keep this in your pocket. It's the best gift anyone could ever give you. I just started giving them away, thousands of them, to people all over the world. So
Wow.
it's the
I love
great
that.
connector.
But
Right.
I don't know if you're noticing, Jody Lynn, but I mean, I've been really hammering on this theme of all the different double meanings. He was playing with the idea of playing with the idea. Did you notice that? He was actually playing with the idea of playing with the idea. He was talking about kicking something around. How often do we use that phrase in the business world? Let's just kick this around. It's the phrase we use for brainstorming. Right? Well, if we're just going to kick this thing around, well, why not actually practice kicking this thing around?
Throw some stuff on the wall. It's usually profanity, but like throw some shit on the wall. Like, like you're talking about playing. That's crazy.
Yeah. The profoundness, the simplistic profoundness of play and how to do it in its various means. Again, everyone finds their way of playing. No matter what you're doing, and start off slowly. But when people say they don't have time to play, I'm like, it's like meditation for me. If you say you don't have time to meditate, you need to meditate more. If you don't have time for play, you need to play more. Right? It's that simple. Just find your ways of playing. But again, juggling for me is a staple, and kicking around a footbag, it's just a way to activate your whole body quickly. So.
In fact, again, going back to Jody Lynn's skill as a life coach, isn't that one of the phrases you look for? I don't have time for something. Isn't that like the indicator, like this is something I need to help that person focus on?
Absolutely. Well, any place that there's resistance, there's obviously a perspective that doesn't serve you, or that could potentially be holding you back.
Right.
Like mine to play is waste time. That was the first thing that came up.
Wow.
What is play? Wasting time. Wow, that's a really bad view of play. But it's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's not how I feel consciously, but obviously subconsciously, there's some stuff there for sure. But what's interesting though is I'm realizing that play is a bigger word than what my original perspective was, or what we normally talk about, or what people normally see, I guess. Because I think about the context of what we're talking about and playing and figuring things out. And Walt, I've talked to you about this. I've talked about this on our show. I was the type of person like into books and personal development seminars, and like that's how I was going to grow, which is fine. But it wasn't until I met my husband that I realized that that wasn't the only way to grow and to, develop and evolve as a human being. He does it inside of the dirt while he's planting things and like in the garden, which is literally he's tinkering, which is playing with things. He'll come up with the most miraculous solutions for things. Like that guy can rebuild anything. Just give him a couple of minutes to figure it out, and he'll have it apart and back together and working again. Like that's just, he plays with things. He tinkers with things. And for years, like I said, I've told Walt about this. I just watched him because I couldn't understand, like, how do you like gardening? I do not get it. It doesn't look fun. You're outside. It's hot. There's barely any reward. Yay, I gotta pee. Like, what is this? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But he was just so enthralled with it and loved it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm originally a farmer. I should probably like this. So my first year, I was like, I freaking hate this. I was a Peter. I'm just not having a good time and whatever. And I like really forced myself to do it. And then it was the second year that I was like, oh, it's kind of nice to go outside. And like, I see the birds singing and hear them, and that's cool. And like, the landscape is beautiful. And look at these little baby plants, they grew, and seeing different, creatures out there and whatever. It became fun for me to continue to do it. And then I could see, oh, he's learning through this. This is how he's sorting through his problems. The way that I would go to a book or a journal or meditation, he goes out and plays in the dirt.
And Jody Lynn knows this, but you don't know it, Zander. Listeners know this, but you don't know. I own a gardening company, and I hate gardening.
Yeah.
But literally, there's a whole storyline about how it was my ex-wife who started, and I bought her out and so forth. But what makes it worthwhile for me to do it is I am good at running a company and doing it to the point where I don't have to do a whole lot of work. I can go off and do other things, which suits me just fine. And I didn't realize it at first, but what I'm doing is I'm providing work to people who love to garden and want to get paid to do it. So I'm actually helping somebody else, a whole bunch of somebody else's, do what they love through play. Nice.
Sweet.
So you don't even have to love the thing. I certainly don't love gardening. Put me in a garden, like, oh, please, do I have to? But I love giving it to somebody else so they can do it, so I can go play the things I want to play with. I want to go play the piano. I don't want to play in the garden. I have no interest in that.
Another thing that I think about is the school, Walt, that you were a part of for kids. And like the whole mission was to figure out if you let them do whatever they wanted, would they actually learn anything? And the answer was absolutely yes.
Over the top, yes. Yeah. Nothing like watching kids by kids, I mean like teenagers, play all day long and watching the growth that comes out of it. It's astonishing.
It's astonishing. That's one of the things that I kind of go into about the reprogramming of humans through the whole, like, putting them into a school system, that conformity and stuff like that. Like, I always talk to you about that, so I don't want to go too much on a tangent about it, but the shutting down of the brain, actually,
exactly the right word.
Yeah. We create a very hollow brain by conforming to reading, writing, and arithmetic. All three of those are pillars are the opposite of what we want to do for the brain. Because once you start thinking linearly, you create these neurons that forces the brain to go in a long distance very quickly. So it creates a neuron pulse that misses out the branches that can happen in between through play or just other activities. But once you start training somebody on 1 + 1 = 2, the brain has to think this linear pulse and misses on the opportunity for growth. And it's very hard to go backwards. So reading is the same thing. If you're reading out loud, especially out loud, your brain has to shut down to read out loud. And writing is the same thing. You're using same muscle movements to create this thing versus just drawing and painting and stuff like that. You're forcing your brain to shut itself down. And that was the way that's the way the plan was. It was like, how can we get humans to conform? They have to be 12 years in a school system. And what are we going to teach them? And for all that time, everything about nothing. That was the plan. Just have the children learn everything about nothing so that they conform to a system, and we miss out on what life's about. We go through that system, and then we have to develop a job to pay for our bills. And all of a sudden we're, going, what did I do? What did I do in my lifetime? That was truly meaningful.
And literally consciously they were doing it because they needed factory workers. That's where the whole thing originally came. So you had to basically conform people to be factory workers. An interesting thing too, since you've touched on this, I'm going to carry on the tack a little bit. One of the biggest things that educators have long been interested in is literacy or illiteracy, and they hammer on it continuously. What's really fascinating is, as much as literacy has and often continues to be an issue, a much bigger issue is one that they refuse to look at because it's even more intimidating. That's innumeracy. And innumeracy happens for exactly the reason you're talking about, because the math and the arithmetic gets shoved down their throats. And so not only do they not want to do it, but they develop a hatred for it, which is why you have an entire Jody Lynn, you and I were talking about this last week after the show, right? Yeah. People actually develop a hatred for mathematics and arithmetic simply because they're forced to do it when they're not ready to do it.
Yeah. Well, and we're forced into different boxes. For me, I just I never bothered to memorize the times table and that stuff. And so when I missed that, you miss like a huge step in the memorization that you're supposed to do to learn all the other things. So I was never good at math. How I ended up, having a thriving career as a financial advisor baffles most people. But for me, I like the creative side of math, like the budgets, the spreadsheets. Oh, if we take this from here and over here, and I can see numbers on this higher level when I'm looking at someone's financial picture that they can't see. But I was never allowed to do that, or never, encouraged to do those kinds of things. It was, this is the problem. You must solve it this way. And there's only one way to get there. And I could never figure it out. So I just did really bad in math.
And then you got all the reinforcement that you were really bad in math.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is really great for your ego and for your self-development and self-worth and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. You're not very smart. You're not good at math. Like,
Exactly.
I got teased about it all the time.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, you're a financial advisor, but you can't do basic math. Yep, sure am.
Mm-hmm. And well, then you also get to time the gender side of it too. Oh, you're a girl. Well, the girls don't do well math at anyway.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, they're good at English. They're not good at math. So like,
that's right.
Great.
Exactly.
But that's
right?
where this stuff comes from. It comes from that kind of illogic. There's no other way to say it. It's completely illogical. It's completely irrational.
And even when you look at it from the context of play, like in school, we're given the opportunity to play at recess, at lunch, and at your last break. And then that's it. Like for me, I took the bus to and from school. So like you didn't get to play after school. You got on the bus and you went home. There wasn't a lot of play in that day, or it was like scheduled and it was like, this is playtime and this is work time to set us up for a life of playing is not valuable. Playing is not, worth something. Like you're not, it's a waste of time. You're not getting anything out of it. It's a useless excuse.
And they didn't even let me
something.
do recess. Recess didn't even exist when I was in school. They didn't allow us to do recess. They let us do gym class.
Oh, wow.
And gym class was structured play.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you had to play the way that the instructor told you to play. No matter what kind of play it was, whether it was a sport or not, you had to do it the way the instructor told you to do it. So even then, the play wasn't truly creative play.
No.
Literally, when I was growing up, there was no opportunity inside school, rather, for just open-ended creative play. There were no opportunities at all.
Wow.
That's why I hated playing with my brothers, because I would pull up, I'm magical and, like I'm like the princess of the rodeo and I can stop the bull and, the bull just follows me and is super nice. And he's like, that's not how it works. Well, in my world, it does. He wouldn't let me do what I wanted. So I just stopped playing with him. Fine, you play by yourself.
Wow. Shut down. No
Shut
creative
down.
play. No.
Yeah,
Wow.
Totally. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That leaves some trauma.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm learning how to play again.
No. Right. So negative thing about play. There we go. Yeah, you got to reformulate that, rediscover your, what makes you happy with play. I mean, you talked about, the spreadsheets and being able to find the different patterns and being above all the numbers per se, and just finding out the things that's another way of play. It really is. As long as your brain is thinking creatively and and enjoying the ride, that's an aspect of play.
Yeah.
We've kind of touched on it indirectly, but I also want to bring in the role that play interacts with and improves upon brain activity, specifically in brain neuroplasticity.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's a theme that we talk about a lot in the context of learning how to change your mindset, how to shift your way of thinking so you can have different experiences in life and so forth. And play is almost indistinguishable from that activity of reshaping your mind. You can probably do some. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Jody Lynn. I'm going to do it through reading books and so forth. I mean, you can kind of do it to a certain extent that way, but at some point, don't you think if you really want to actually, attain some growth in this, you have to play with it a little bit?
I think there needs to be that action.
Yeah.
There's got to be some sort of action in there, or else you're just sitting on your butt. with your journal.
And not just a structured action. It's got to be just creative. Like, I'm going to just try something that I hadn't really planned on trying to do before. Not because somebody told me to, but just because I just feel this inclination to just try this, whatever this thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's important. You're following your intuition. You're like getting out of that comfort zone and doing something that feels a little different, getting your body into that. Like, it's not scary. It's okay for us to be here in this moment and being goofy and let loose. And I think some really astonishing and amazing things happen when you get out of your own way, or you get out of your own, like, path that you've been, the rut that you've been in for years. I think it does take play.
And I can also say from all the hundreds of people that I've interviewed here on the show, and there are a lot of them who are very, very successful, I can't recall more than 1%, probably 0.1%. Other than that 0.1% group, the other 99.9%, they were relaxed, they were creative, they were playful, they went in all kinds of directions, and going down rabbit holes was no problem at all. They loved doing it all the time. There was a mindset of playfulness with everybody who's been on the show who was successful in something.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And I think it's like a universal thing. I think it applies all the time.
Mm-hmm. And something else too, you mentioned it, Zander, was, I don't know if you use this specific word, but it's what triggered in me this fulfillment, this purpose. A lot of people, they get to a certain age and we see it like midlife, but it doesn't necessarily have to be when you turn 50, 40, whatever the number is. Just sometime you wake up and realize, what have I done with my life? Like, I've sat in an office. I'm like, is this all there is? Is this what I was supposed to do? It feels so unfulfilling. And I think it's because we haven't had play in decades.
Yeah.
I'm realizing something just now. Playing on the theme, there it is again. Playing on the theme of guests coming onto the show and sharing their expertise and having experimented and gotten creative and so forth. You know this, Jody Lynn. How many people come onto the show and they have an acronym formula for you to follow?
What?
And I'm thinking about that and I'm saying, well, an acronym formula, that's a structured way to start making a shift. Why a structured way? Because the audience they're talking to are people who are stuck. That's the person who is used to having a structure. They're not used to the idea of creative. So that's how you kind of get them going, by giving them a structure to work with. That's why everybody who comes on the show who has something they want, they've got an acronym. All you have to do is just follow this 4-letter acronym and it will solve all of your problems. Well, it solves it because it gets you off the stick.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't think I have an acronym available.
Good, actually. Well, you've got one across the top of your head, but I really don't recommend coming up with PLAY. Then just I like the road you're taking. Let's just be creative with this. Let's just go wild. Develop the skill through physiology. I mean, because using the sack and just juggling and so forth. That's it's not about playing with the letters, is playing with a thing or a series of things that are really inconsequential just to get the brain going, just to get the body going, just to get the whole set of juices going. Because that's where it's really at.
Yeah. Zander, I know that you had mentioned that you were working like 100-hour weeks, and that's kind of where the shift happened. But could you speak more to like the mental battle that you may or may not have gone through? I know for me, over my ascension, whatever growth, taking more time for myself is something I've battled with my brain. Like, I'm safe to take 10 minutes and go eat lunch. It's going to be okay. Nothing's going to melt down. Like, I don't have to answer my phone at night. But I imagine that as someone that is very dedicated to like the regular regime of I must go to work. We do these things. This is the way that it is, to move to that creative state and give themselves permission to do so is going to go through some sort of mental battle. Did you feel that? Did you experience that? And what did you do?
Well, when I was working, there wasn't really an option. You know what I mean? There was just always something to do. So I didn't have any thoughts other than just putting in Like there was just so many things I needed to do all the time. And so, I mean, I wasn't even thinking about the hours. I was just thinking about what I need to accomplish. And I just remember even trying to take a break to go out to lunch or something like that. If I'd come back, my boss would be like, "Oh, how was the whale watch? You know, some of us have to work." You know, he would just be like, "It's about
See?
like, you know, must be nice." You know, and I'm just like, I was just out for half an hour to grab some food. I'm sorry. It was so the mental wasn't even there, if you will, young enough and ignorant enough about life. I don't have a, you know, I'm supposed to show up. I'm supposed to do my work. That's it. But and then once I released it, once I said I can't do this anymore, I'm gone, then everything just disappeared. Like like play became like I moved from, I was living in Burbank. I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and
Wow, there's
immediately right. It's funny because I'm doing a little memoir about it, but it was just like going from exact opposites. Like I was at my office sleeping in my work when doing this NBC thing, and then when I got to Boulder, it just invited me to be outdoors. It invited me to experience nature. Did like I went rock climbing. I was river rafting down the middle of Boulder Creek and just hung out with people who were very outgoing. I rode my mountain bike everywhere and played street hockey and just completely separated myself from being in the work environment and went, I'm just going to do and wake up every day going, how can I make this day fun? So it was a complete switch.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's definitely the way to do it. Because when you that's basically an immersion is what that is.
Yeah.
When you move from Burbank to Boulder and you have that huge shift indoor to outdoor, regimented activity to freeform activity, that is an immersion activity where you're just shifting your entire brain in a very short period of time.
Almost overnight.
Yeah.
You know, I like a week later packed up all my things and just headed to Boulder. So
wow.
And I mean, I had a plan to go out there and actually start up a new company.
What happened to the company? I'm curious.
right. It was, well, it was a graphic design company that was switching over to video. And since I'd done all the video stuff, I was gonna get their computers and just head up their whole, video production end of it. But the computer that they wanted, that I was looking to get, was delayed. And so I was gonna go, I started to travel at that point. I was going to come back at one point and work with them. But when I was at some place, I was actually going to come home for that Christmas, but I was down in Australia at that time. And I called up and said, if I can come back. And he's like, don't. He's like, just, if you want to come back here eventually, you can always have a place here, but just, keep on traveling. You do it while you can. So he was so good with me and just basically just said, I can imagine what you're feeling right now, and you don't want that to end. So just keep on going. So then I just traveled through Southeast Asia for another 9 months, and just, experiencing everything I could.
By the way, there's an example of a boss who has his head screwed on straight. I mean, because he was right on. Seriously, he was right on.
Yeah. Such a good,
and from a business perspective too. Now, I mean, obviously he was right on from a human and a psychological perspective. From a business perspective, he was right on too, because if he had tried to play it the other way and let's say he actually got you to come back and he got you to go to work there, I'm willing to bet anything that he would have gotten 3/4 of you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Or less.
Yep.
Or less.
Yeah.
I was trying to be generous.
I'm like, when I came back to, but he's a great, I just remember that being one of the more profound conversations I had that really allowed me to continue to go. It was one of those, boom, I've got this. So it was a great launching point for me. And he also gave me some money for that, because I left him my computer and stuff like that. So he paid me for my computer that I left with him, my other computer, and it was just like, we're good. We're good. So,
man, oof.
Great guy.
Yeah. Fabulous guy. That's somebody to maintain a connection with for the rest of your life. That's a good one.
Unfortunately, I didn't. Time I was just when I traveled and stuff like that. And then I tried to look him up later on, but the design
You
place
lost
is not
touch.
there
Oh,
anymore.
that's too bad.
Yeah. That happened. To be honest, that happened with so many people that I was gonna we're gonna keep in contact, but traveling and stuff like that. I have all these art books. I drew, and I had all these people write down their information in the art books, and this was pre-computer. Nobody had email at the time.
Right.
So, eventually I lost track of all these people. I tried to reach out to them later on, and their phone numbers are no longer valid. They don't live in that same place. And I'm like,
right.
But that's c'est la vie, right? You just got to go with it.
Yeah. You do the best you can. I was just thinking that's the kind of person you want in your circle. That's what my thought process was. Because so often we're not selective about that kind of thing. Again, something else Jody Lynn deals with her clients, and we're not selective about the people we put into our circle, and they're all important. That's one of the most important things you can have is having connections with the people who feed you rather than basically suck the life out of you. There's no other way to put it. Yeah,
positive vibes versus yuck. That's it. It makes you who you are. So you want to have that positive vibe. Yeah. I want to touch. Yeah, being supportive. It's important.
Yeah, like just supportive of being different or approaching a challenge differently. I think that goes a long way. Having somebody in your corner, like, oh, I've never done this before, but I'm going to try this, and they're like, yeah, go for it. Like, give it a shot. What do you got to lose? Yeah, exactly. Having people like that may not understand exactly the way that you're thinking, but are cheering you along the way anyway.
Perfect.
That's what you want.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Zander?
I want to jump back a little bit and talk a little bit about neuroplasticity, because we brought that up. And as far as the scientific evidence of what juggling does for us, as well as how it builds white as well as gray matter in the brain. And it creates new neuron connections, which helps with Alzheimer's, dementia, and memory stuff. So juggling's phenomenal for that. But it brings to light a little story that just happened recently. I was at my first gig at a new senior center I went to, and jumping into the room, figuring out, okay, how we're going to do this playful thing. I brought origami because I do origami animals, and I brought balloons. I'm like, balloons are always fun. And I'm like, but I've always got these. And these are the ultimate play tools. We can check these things out. So I hand them to everybody in the room, and I'm like, just squeeze this. This is amazing for just building neuromuscular tactile senses, and this stimulates the brain amazing because the hands are like the gateway to the brain. The amount of neuron connections that go with triggering how your hands move and the tactile senses is a huge chunk of your brain. So even squeezing this, it's wonderful for you, right? So I had them doing that, and then next thing, I'm like, and they were all excited about it. I'm like, let's continue to play with this. So I put some paper cups in the middle of the floor. We had a big circle of them. And I'm like, we're just going to try and shoot them in the cups, right? Let's just start with that. So next thing you know, they start throwing them at the cups, but the cups weren't weighed down, right? And so they would hit the cups and knock a bunch of them over.
Yeah.
Right? So I started to set up the cups as I'm starting to try and toss the hackitos back to people. And it all of a sudden turned into, let's try and knock down cups as well as hit Zander. Right, because this lady was behind me. I later found out she was partially blind, but she just started throwing the hacks at me. And just as I'm turning one way, I feel this beam behind me, and I'd be like, "Who did that?" And I'm looking around, going, and she's just giggling, and I'm tossing these hacks to people, trying to catch them and stuff like that. But the laughter was crazy because I'm exaggerating things and just having fun with picking up the cans and having fun with the whole process. But to see how quickly they were adapting to things, like they started catching the balls more, they were starting to throw better, really instantly. And it was just very apparent to me how drastic the shift happened from not laughing and not having a movement to having abundant movement and being very excited. And just laughter is the paramount medicine. It's one of the ones I'm like, laughter is the best medicine, but to see how quickly they adjusted to things. There's a lot going on in the brain. There was a lot of things that were just like making these new connections. And like literally this one lady who couldn't catch a single one of them I was tossing to, at the end of them was catching them and did this one where she babbled a couple times and caught it. It was extraordinary. And other people did observe it, that the faculty was around watching me because it was my first day, and they were things. It's the brain is remarkable. And I'm a firm believer in bringing play, laughter into the equation. It expedites the processes of those neuron connections because it stimulates the brain in unique ways.
You bring up a very interesting point by talking about this in the context of a senior center, because I'm kind of getting up there into that age range, and I have no intention of ever being in a senior center. That's the last thing I want to do. But nevertheless, the older you get, the more you're aware of all of societal's expectations about senior citizens. And it's very hard to not take them in, because, I mean, that's part of the training. We're all trained to, think in this way. Oh, you're a senior, you're going to become more, more debilitated. You're going to become weakened. You're going to, curl up and die, all this kind of stuff, which is, it's a
just wait for death. Okay.
It bums me out. It's a mindset. It literally is. And the way we treat our seniors now versus being respected and being the elders of society, and they have all this to give, and that seniors and children should be together because seniors have the patience and the children, they can learn from the seniors. We've separated that out, and now we put seniors in a place to just die. To slowly just wither away and be out of sight, out of mind, to forget about it, whatever. It's just horrible. It's horrible. So when I go into the senior centers and I can see this laughter and the way they change it, that makes me feel like, oh gosh, amazing. And they're all beautiful people. Like literally getting the magic behind these people, and seeing that they have their sparkle in their eye. And
what you're making me think, though, the reason I even bring this part up is we often talk about, well, so what is the solution for, how do you help senior citizens? How do you help people in the last third of life and so forth? One of the best things we could do is to encourage them to play. And it's almost mind-boggling we don't think about that, because what's the one thing that everybody associates with being, I'm going to give you a clue, being over 65? What does 65 say? 65 in the popular culture is that's when you retire. And what is it you're supposed to do when you retire? Drum roll, please. You're supposed to play. Where's the play?
No.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I see it. I see it among people my own age. Frankly, I get blown away by people my own age, how many of them have just allowed their bodies, their minds, their lives to just kind of fall apart. And they've done it, among other things, by not playing anymore.
Yeah.
And once you stop having that purpose as well, you start shutting it down. You know what I mean? And so the play on purpose is part of the program, like just play on purpose.
Yeah.
But and the whole thing about as you age, the more childlike you get. Like, you know what I mean? Like the childlike innocence.
Good thing.
When you so like that, they're and they have that childlike. So I'm like, all right, expand upon that, make them giggle, make them have a good time, and it's remarkable. But that's
what I like so much about that story, where they're playing with a hacky and they're giggling. The half blind woman who's giggling. Like, when was the last time she giggled?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to kind of imagine. It was quite a while, right? And the people who were throwing the bean hackies at you, and they were throwing at the cups, and they were turning into this wild, crazy scene like that. When was the last time they all let loose like that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I told them from the very beginning. They're like, "What's the point of this?" I'm like, when we started off, when they were throwing it, they were knocking out. What's the point? I'm looking. I'm like, the point is to have fun. It doesn't matter what we're doing, as long as we're having fun. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. And then it started getting into like that actual fun of it. It was just like, doesn't have to have an exact structure. It doesn't have to have a end result other than fun. Just have a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I wonder.
I'm gonna put you on the spot with something that it's kind of a softball question.
I like it.
But What do you think would happen with society if, say, 10% of the population learned to play more?
Oh my gosh, it'd be a revolution because it spreads. That's the thing. You know what I mean? If we had, I mean, even 1% who got the thing of play, and got why the meaning of it, it spreads like wildfire. Because who doesn't want to play? That's the problem. It's just that people are a little side thing. I have a park close by my house, and I go up there almost every day at around sunset, and I do a walk around where I juggle. I juggle around the whole park, and then I go to one area, and I'm usually juggling, or I sometimes kick around my foot bag now. But it is so challenging for me to get people to jump in and play with me. And this is like almost the exact opposite of when I travel places. I went to a park and I started playing, and somebody would almost inevitably jump in with me. And it just, we're such a place of like of being so self-conscious and such in a state of, I don't want to look like I can't do that, or whatever. And coming up to a stranger, oh my gosh, but if we had a small percentage of the people, if I came out there and one out of every 10 times I came out there, somebody would play with me, I'd be so stoked. But they would play at other places. That play spreads. And the more people who are doing juggling or something like that, it gives other people the permission. And that's what people are lacking. People are feeling self-conscious. I don't want to play. I don't want to play. Blah, blah, blah. But if the more people who play, the more people have the permission to play. And that would cause the revolution. And
what you're really saying is it needs to become acceptable.
Yeah,
100%. It needs to be. People need to talk about it more. It needs to be not a negative four-letter word. It needs to be a positive one. And we got to remember that it's really makes life worth living. It really changes the game up completely.
I bet you if you were to study the correlation of like people's faces and wrinkles. And like, so skin care or skin, whatever you want to call it. I think you would find a correlation with people who look younger, who play more, and people who don't, or never play, and they prematurely age in their face as well as their body, but they're like sourpusses in their face.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who don't age, who don't smile, and then they don't get the
smile lines, yeah.
Those lines, and they'll get this thing going, you know what I mean? Because they're just stern face and they keep their face relaxed.
Right.
Yeah.
But you age when you get hunched over because you're not playing or you're not experiencing things like that. That's the death sentence for us as humans, is getting our head forward more. So by playing and being able to get, conscious of your posture and things like that. I mean, again, play is so varied. It's such a big word in the different ways you can play, but the joyful spirit keeps you young. Young and heart is where we should be.
And as usual, Jody Lynn, I feel like we've just been playing for an hour. I mean, it's always fun, right? But doesn't this feel like it was just play for this whole conversation?
Totally.
It really has. We have 3 things we like to do at the end of every show, Zander, and we want to do it with you as well. First one, this is probably the most important one. Do you like getting contact from people? If you do, how does somebody reach out to you?
And I love connecting with people in general, especially about play. I mean, the best way to reach out to me is via my website, which is it's Hackido or hackido.org or .com. Hackido. This is what I call these. Right. I call these Hackidos, but also I call these the ultimate play tool.
Hackidos, right? I love it.
Right? Because it says hack I do. Like, so you hack your mind, body, and spirit with this thing. But not only is this great for juggling and kicking around, but you can slap them around because they're soft. They're made with hemp fabric and hemp seeds. My son beans me at him with them, and it doesn't hurt. My mom and I will go to a park and we'll play like a bocce style game. We throw one out and they throw one with either hand to try and touch it or get close to it at least. Senior centers knock them into cups, knock down cups, throw them into cups. Whatever you want to do with this thing that you can keep in your pocket, you can play infinite ways. That's cool. So I call that the ultimate play tool. So the website, hackido.org or .com, has the free juggling course, right? So you can click on the juggling course and learn how to make you make nice juggling balls in there. They're not these ones, but they're made from rice, plastic bags, and balloons. But I also have a different page that shows you how to make one of these with a stencil you can download. You can cut out the fabric and make it.
Wow.
So that's
Cool.
a great way, right? Along with that, the origami stuff, I have a website for origami that you can download a stencil, which has like I call them hacky bills, but they're my design for a dollar bill. And all of my origami animals are based off of dollar bill folds. But that is another extraordinary thing for your brain, right? So you can go there for free and see all these different things. You can download the stencil for free and just learn how to make animals. Another fun thing to do. And the other way is the heal my hernia. So if you have a hernia or know anybody who does have a hernia, if they're not in a medical emergency, check out healmyhernia.com. I give free tools of how to work the hernia. I also have a protocol that you can pay for, which gets you into the back room or have videos that go into more depth behind it. But it's literally a way to try to heal your hernia. If you have one, good chance that you will, if you just follow the protocol and stay with that mindset, you can heal yourself. But if you have a recurrence, you know what to do versus surgery. You don't. If you get a surgery, it's too late. You're in the surgery world.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Very cool. I love that. So and thank you for that. We'll make sure we'll also include in the show notes the link to the website, particularly for making their own hacky sack. I love that you did that. That's great.
Yeah, and then you can paint them. Like you can put your own designs on them, and like if you're an artist, you can use fabric markers and create gorgeous designs, and then you give them away to people. You don't hold on to it. You just can give them away to people and change their world. Give them the ultimate play tool that you've put your love and energy to, and you're connected with it. Like the thousands I've given away over the years, when people play with them, I get a little warm, fuzzy vibe because I'm connected with it still. So
wow, that is very cool. I love that.
Right.
It makes me wonder if we're going to start seeing a whole bunch of these on Etsy sometime soon. Who knows?
You never know. Never know. Hopefully, please.
Hopefully, yeah, that'd be good, right? So, second thing we like to do is I like to get Jody Lynn to give us her perspective on tying the whole thing together, because these conversations usually have rabbit holes. They usually have all kinds of in-depth, and we certainly had plenty of that. The nice thing that was really great about this conversation, the depth was fun. The play was in everything. So I don't think she's going to have a whole lot of trouble tying it together, but I'm curious to see what she's going to say. So, what you got for us, Jody Lynn?
Oh man. Okay. Well, a great impact on my world you have had today, Zander. I've had the most incredible perception shift on play. Not that I was against it in any way, but an opportunity to observe what it is that I was thinking and how I was conducting my life with, not enough play, really. I wrote down a couple of things that I want to share because I think, at the beginning, I told you guys I went from thinking my perception of play is wasting time to something that you said, Zander, and I wrote this down and I really feel this within my heart. Playing is the most productive time in my schedule. And I think that we're so used to putting things into a box, whether it's work or health or whatever. I never even thought, I had a car accident 5 or 6 months ago, and I've been dealing with some brain issues, and I've been so serious about it. And so what work do I need to do to get better? And it's been so incredibly frustrating. And today it just dawned on me that it could be more fun, and literally I could juggle my way out of what is happening. So that is inspiring. And then I also wrote down this, and I think it's so beautiful. The ultimate life, health, skin, rejuvenation, fulfillment, and success hack is play. So thank you, Zander, for that reminder today, because I think it will change the world.
Lovely. Thank you. That was a great insights. Appreciate all this.
You can see why I go to her for this. She's really good at it.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And then the last thing I like to do is, this is something I started a few years ago when I noticed something, because we live in the 21st century. We live in the internet age, right? And so now it's self-promotion. And so that's why, for instance, you came onto this podcast. I'm sure you do other podcasts. You probably might post on social media. You're out in the world. You're doing all these different things to get out there and share your play vibe with everybody, which is fabulous. What we've done is we've invented the freebie. Free becomes the way of sharing information, of sharing the cool stuff that we've learned, and we end up helping people we don't even know about. Sometimes we don't even know that the people are there. because of the internet and so forth. They're picking stuff up and, they're watching it on YouTube or whatever. And we don't even know what's happening in their lives. Yeah. And in the process, I realize there's a big gap that happens there because we don't know. And so we don't get any feedback on. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we get an email or a text or something. But a lot of times we don't find out what happened. And yet we're helping these people. And I'm thinking, we need to recognize that because that's important. So that's what I like to do. I like to say to guests like you on the show, Zander, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping to learn how to play again and getting results that you weren't even aware of that are happening. On their behalf, thank you for what you're doing because you're making a difference in this world.
Oh, appreciate that. It warms my heart. That's just trying to play this game best of my ability, and thank you guys for this time and help me spread the word and appreciate your inputs, your questions, and then the way you let this thing find its way because it's much appreciated.
Do us a favor. Keep telling the world how important play is.
Thank you.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. It's big. It's really big.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jody Lynn. I love what you said. I mean, that's the first time that I've heard you take that really positive spin on what you've been dealing with an accident because it's been hard for you. You've had to really deal with stuff. And wow, I heard that. I said, oh my goodness, that's a takeaway. That's a huge one. You're muted, so I can't hear you.
I said, huge takeaway. Just changed my life, Zander. Literally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, sweetie.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.